call the meeting to order. Agenda here, was it properly noticed? It was, very good. We have a 12-point agenda. If you see an 11.1, that's an out-of-date one. There was a 7th item added, wildlife damage set commodity prices. So there is a 12-point agenda. Can we get a motion to approve that agenda? Motion by McGuire. Second by Carroll. All those in favor say aye.
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 Our agenda is approved. We also have in our folders the November 7th minutes. One thing I noticed in the beginning, it said Dan McGuire was both here and absent. He was here, I believe. So typo. Any other notes, or do we have a motion to approve the minutes with that one typo correction? Supervisor McGuire moves to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Actually, I was not there either, so that should probably be.
Oh,
I'll
That's-
second it.
okay. So the typo correction is that Carol was absent, not McGuire. All right, and Melissa seconds with that correction. Is that okay with your motion too, Dan? Is that okay with your motion too, that we're, okay, okay? So we have the motion and the second to approve the minutes with the correction. All in favor, say aye.
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 Minutes are approved. Item number 5, zoning petitions. First one on the list is Lyle and Christy Jelly. One of the microphones here, if we can get you to here, turn it on.
So I'm Ted Greenheck, agent for the Jellies and surveyor of the property. So the Jellies we're kind of doing a couple cleanup items out there. They have an existing lot that consists of 1.8 acres that really doesn't touch anything but the house. And so then come into mind that the road really doesn't touch the property either. So we did the new survey to incorporate the center line of Indian Creek Drive, and they'll do an exchange of quitclaim deeds with the neighbors to get that area. Essentially, the 40 line comes down the ditch line on the west of the Indian Creek Road is what the original call for of their ownership was. Either the road migrated or the section lines moved at some point in time over the course of the history, but the attempt here is to correct everything, get it to touch the road right away. The existing parcel itself was less than the minimum standard, so therefore we're creating a 2.42 acre lot to bring it up to standards and get everything monumented and corrected.
Mike, do you have anything to add? No?
As Ted mentioned that, they're bringing this into more of a conformance. The parcel is actually more landlocked than it was touching public roads, so they're just bringing it to conformity.
Okay. Any committee members have questions?
I would make a motion to approve.
Motion by Luck to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Carol. Any further discussion? Otherwise, all in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is the petition from GAV Ventures LLC. Hello. Hello. And can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Garrett Matesnik.
Okay.
So GAV Ventures is the real estate that Matesnik Power Sports sits on. We're looking at.
I can see a green light, so your mic is on, but I can't.
All right. How's that?
Much better, thank you.
All right. So GAV Ventures is the real estate that Matesnik Power Sports sits on, and it's the area that we're talking about is the agriculture that's around the store, currently corn, leased to the Yumbyhans. We're looking at putting in a pond project there, to be able to float a boat, essentially is the goal, do a launch and be able to, dock line up a boat out there and float it to run it. So I think where the zoning comes in, it's a mining permit that we're after, just in case we have to take some of the sand off the property. We're looking for that permit to do so if we don't decide to keep it all on the property.
So to explain, make sure everyone understands, it's a non-metallic conditional use permit. Anytime you take sand and all that off of the property and use it to sell or anything like that, it needs to be a non-metallic mine permit. And that's what they're applying for.
Okay. So we have an application for a non-metallic mining conditional use permit with the intended purpose of moving some sand if needed for this pond project.
Right.
And to note, it's not frac sand that we're doing, it's just, there's digging a hole to fill in with groundwater, basically, and then use it as a pond to use it for.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Luck.
I'm assuming that the water will just stay within the pond. It doesn't drain into like the Pine River or anything like that.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, we've been approved by the DNR in regards to the Pine River being far enough away and any stormwater runoff and any of that stuff.
Perfect. I would
Pine
make a
River,
motion to approve then.
I was going to say, the Pine River's on the opposite side of the railroad tracks.
That's correct. And it's, yeah. And it's far enough from that by distance that they require.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yes, Supervisor Carroll, go ahead.
This is the first time I've been involved with one where there was a non-metallic mining permit. What all do you need to talk to DNR about? What do they look for? And then, I'm just curious where the water table is, if you're pretty confident it'll fill in.
Yeah, so the reason that we talked to the DNR is because there's wetlands nearby, I guess. So they're okaying that it's in a zone that's allowed to be done for a pond. So they're looking where the nearest river is, where the wetlands are, and I guess that's what they looked at. And then the storm water runoff as well. So I guess those are the three things the DNR was looking at. As far as your second part of your question, there's been test holes dug and a numerous amounts of different pieces of the property, and we figured out where the water's going to be coming in.
One more question.
Okay.
If you do have excess, where do you think you might put that? Or is that,
Sand?
yeah,
It hasn't been discussed, but my guess would be on that would be, I don't know what side to be, but the the bike trail side on our property line would be my guess, and just build up a shelf there.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
So if it's filling with groundwater, I'm just curious, if that pond got contaminated, would that mean that the groundwater could potentially be contaminated?
I would assume that's how that works, yeah.
Not speaking with any kind of scientific knowledge here.
Right,
correct?
no, I assume that's how it worked.
Yeah, right. I'm just curious. So there is potential that I'm just a little concerned that there could be a potential to contaminate groundwater that's being used, there are wells in the area that may be drawing from that same aquifer.
Right, it'd be probably the same consequence for any lake, like Lake Redstone or anything else, right? They're all well properties around that lake, but
Are they groundwater fed or are they surface water fed? Those other lakes are surface
Yeah,
water fed, I think,
sure,
but
sure.
I'm just curious. So is there farming going to be around that? There's still going to be a cornfield around the pond?
Yes,
So in theory, if they put nitrogen on that field, if they put fertilizer on that field, if they put anything on the field around it, when it rains, the water may go into that pond, right?
yeah,
Said stormwater runoff was one of the things the DNR looked at in the
mhm,
approval process.
right, yep.
Supervisor Luck had made a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second by McGuire. Okay, further discussion? Any other questions from committee members? Use your mic, Dan.
Runoff water, has that been approved? Or has that been, some sort of a solution found for that, or?
Well, everything was, everything was approved through the DNR. I'm not sure. Do you have any input on what was said about that?
So we had to give the full scope property, and then they looked at the runoff from 14 running down, and what would that cause? They looked trail basically. After all the analysis, I mean, there's just a touches wetlands, but most of that property runoff, there were exposed for, and to back up with runoff that we yeah, long ongoing process done in a year. Out of approval.
I can't really hear what he's saying.
Would you be able to step up here and use one of the microphones, please?
So the DNR approval permit is for 3 years. We don't know how long the conditional approval permit would last for, but this would be a slow ongoing process. And I had numerous conversations with the DNR with regard to erosion and runoff and that sort of thing. So everything would be graded appropriately. And if we were going to have land farmed there, there'd be sufficient berming so we wouldn't have water runoff from the farmland into the pond. It's a double benefit there for the fact of, number one, is we're not putting chemicals in the water because we don't want chemicals in the water. And number two, it also ruins a pond. It silts it up and ruins it. So the goal there is to be able to float a boat, but our overarching goal is to have natural indigenous wildlife around, stock it with fish, that sort of a thing. And that's a long-term goal that we have with the DNR. So we're as conscientious with regard to wildlife and groundwater contamination as we possibly could be with.
Did you get a written approval or just a voice approval?
We do. We have a full written approval
Oh, that's
for 3
great.
years.
Okay. All right.
Yep,
All I need to know.
yep.
Could we just get a copy of the report to throw in this file? Is that all right?
Not a problem.
Okay.
Yep, not a problem.
Any other questions from the committee? We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? Look forward to the report. Thank you very much. Moving along to item number 6 on the agenda, wildlife damage set harvest date.
Okay, we need to set the harvest date for when Richland County, are you guys hearing me? I think it's working.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Okay.
Can you hear okay, Melissa?
yes, I can.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Sorry. We need to set the approval date for when we feel 80% of the crops were harvested in Richland County. And basically the reason we do that is so that anyone who tries to enroll in the program thereafter who has overwinter crops left in the field, we're not paying for that loss in April. That takes a big bite out of the program pretty fast. So they set this policy that we have to set a date. From what I could see and from the farmers involved, we could set a date anytime after November 1st this year. So it's up to this committee to make that choice of date and approval of that date.
Is there guidance from what we've done in the past, or?
I'm just pulling up my calendar here. Probably, you know, if we say, like, say Veterans Day, the 11th would be a good date, then it's,
That's just fine. Yep.
Okay. So we'd be looking for a motion to set the harvest date as November 11th.
So move.
Motion by McGuire, second by Fleming. All those in favor of setting, oh,
I've
go
got a
ahead.
question.
Question, go ahead.
Yeah. Again, I'm still learning these things that I haven't gone through in this committee before. So could you give a little more background on how that process works with farmers applying for this?
Yep.
What their deadlines are? And,
Yep. To be in the program, the farmer has to enroll within 14 days of first damage to their crops. I basically go out there at that point and get them signed up. They have to allow public hunting on their property to get a claim on their crop damage. They have to call me within 14 days before they harvest each crop for me to get an appraisal to find out what the damage is. And they have to allow public hunting on the property and have a requirement of getting 80% of their deer shot by September 15th. That was recommended or given to them to use for antlerless deer.
Is there a deadline for when they can apply for damage?
Within 14 days of first damage.
No, I mean, in the calendar year.
Yes, within 14 days of first damage to that. They have to sign up every year. This is every year an ongoing renewal. And they have to sign up within 14 days of first damage.
I'm still trying to understand. So in other words, we're saying the 80% crop date is November 11th. Well, if someone was to have damage and sign up now, it wouldn't be, it would be, essentially we're creating a deadline, right?
Correct. That's
Okay.
what this is for. Because we've in the past had people who have been okay through the summer and they don't get their crops off the field, especially if they're up on a ridge and we have early snow or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's up there all winter. By the time I go up there to appraise it in April, there's nothing left and you're paying for that entire crop.
Well, we've had a pretty nice fall. I would
That's why we have normally our date is somewhere after Thanksgiving that we have, you know, our date of harvest. But this year it was end of October and 80% was out.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. Any further questions? If not, all in favor of setting November 11th, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item number 7, which was added to the agenda, wildlife damage set commodity prices. And there was a copy of an email in our folders.
Okay, and that, there's just 2 things this year that we have to set a price on, and that is for corn per bushel cost and soybean per bushel cost for Richland County. Corn, these are prices that I get from local, like, you know, through Boscobel, through the river, through Muscadet, the different places that farmers could sell their crops locally to get an idea of what, you know, that price is that's lost to these farmers. The average on that came out to $6.48 on corn and $14.02 on soybeans. Again, you can adjust that price how you feel. I just present you what I find from local stations, basically in our area, where this corn could be sold to, if they had it.
So the prices we've been given are $6.48 a bushel for corn and $14.02 for soybeans.
Correct.
Okay. Feeling those are fair? So we'd be,
that's why Greg kind of checks with a local. So it's,
Mhm.
we're not dealing with like
Yeah,
Chicago prices, or
right,
it's whatever they
Yeah,
can sell.
as these
Yeah.
commodities and this board changes, that becomes an issue. And so I've been asked in the past to provide these prices that, you know, are
Mhm.
local.
okay. Do we have a motion to set those as our prices then?
And so moved.
Motion by Caro, second by McGuire to set 6.48 a bushel for corn and 14.02 for soybeans. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda here. Item number 8 on the agenda, GIS sanitation position contract.
I would say back to Melissa on this one.
Last I heard, Clint was trying to get a meeting set to talk to Lynn and I don't remember who else. And I haven't heard anything. So I don't think there's any progress on getting an RFP written just yet. I will touch base with him when I'm back home.
Madam Chair, this is Administrator Langrick. If you're,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, we have a Mr. Chair today, but
Right.
Supervisor Luck, I can speak to that if you've got a minute.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so I tried to put the meeting together with folks that previously had experiences with all the pieces on it, and there are many pieces as it touches a lot of different end users. Did not get the meeting together based on availabilities and desires to try to get everybody together to talk on it. Did get some different pieces of the puzzle, though, sent to me via email. Had a follow-up conversation with Administrator Bindle and Director Scott, and also then with Network Administrator Marshall, on trying to put the pieces together, and it's still quite confusing. I would say the options at hand, and we can talk about this in further length, Supervisor Luck, is to include as part of the RFP essentially the same person to help kind of visualize and draw the map for us, as well as identify the different data storage solutions that might be there for us. The other element of it is I can continue moving forward on mapping it myself. I think what really kind of what it arrives at is the GIS position. You can kind of visualize as the center hub, and the other pieces of the hub, the spokes off of it, are kind of your end users, and they're going to be asking for the different information, almost like a customer kind of approach, and asking for different overlays to be kind of incorporated with the mapping system. So it's still an unsolved mystery. Again, if you wanted to move forward with it immediately, you can just simply, I shouldn't say simply, but you can attempt to put in an RFP to say, whoever's going to pick up the functions for us in a longer term capacity. We would also request that you help us map the data flows, as well as if you have any data storage solutions, to try to help make it more efficiently. Otherwise, I'll continue firsthand direct effort in trying to map that. And again, it's trying to visualize, though, that whoever we bring in is for a GIS solution, for them to have a full understanding of how it goes and it impacts the Spillman system, and everything that has to be touched on their end or into the property listers is probably beyond feasible. We'd be able to put together a general map, but again, it almost is like the end users are kind of a consumer and doing their own type of a thing on it, and it might be better served to focus on the GIS position of identifying really what the focus of the job description is and building it around that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, one question I have is there any possibility, have you talked to Sauk County about anyone from their office being able to come down and, I mean, whether we hire them or whatever, but having them come down and sort of map that out for us, or is that not a possibility?
I have not asked that question, but I can, and I'll get that answer back to you, not by the end of this week, by next week.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I think it sounds like that they have gone through a process of really working through their GIS position. So anyway, at least that's what I heard. So
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
So, by the committee needed today. Move on to item number 9, referendum ad hoc committee questions. My folder isn't updating to show me what we had in there, so
I that was kind of, it was the ones that were at the at the, was it the referendum meeting?
Okay.
And I forgot, I don't have access to that folder, so
Ah, okay. Um, do we
I-
have?
I've got them here.
Okay, sure. Go ahead if you would be so kind.
Well, it says, please prepare a chart with line items and projected reductions to the levy by year, 2024 through 2027. And just the cutting the one position in my department to half-time, it can be, it's not an easy saying, okay, this is what it's going to be reduced, because in talking with Tammy upstairs, it depends on if they had prior service, are still intact, and had prior service, worked prior with Wisconsin retirement system prior to July 2011. So that depends on what kind of insurance, what they're eligible for, what retirement they're eligible for. Or if they don't have any hours, and because it's the hours they make working be less than 23.25 hours a week, the county doesn't pay anything towards the health, dental, short-term disability. So I've got a couple scenarios with mine. And Mike hasn't had time to look through if it's any reductions or not, or if it'd be not necessarily reductions, but maybe projected income, depends on if the fees are increased. The second question was, why can't the land conservation administrative assistant be 60% time instead of 50% time to handle the parks operations? Well, first of all, that position just does bookkeeping. It's not the other stuff. It's not the grant writing. It's not the going out and looking at sites. It's none of that sort of thing. And so so we cut her position to 50%. Us other in this have to take up her other 50%, and that there's no time to do the parks. And I don't know about the committee, but Carla and I have talked about, it says, does the committee recommend to another department oversee the county parks instead of land conservation? And Carla Dowden and I have talked, and that's one place we thought would be, that could transition to, because she has the camping, she has a lot of the mowing, she has all that kind of thing. So it'd make more sense to go with switching that over, the parks duties over to that department. How do private septic inspection fees in Richland County compare to other similar counties? We're interested in logic behind the increase.
To kind of go on that, the question back is, what is other similar counties to us? So whoever was at the ad hoc committee, it'd be nice to know what counties are similar to Richland County you're looking at.
That's your question?
That's the question, yes. Are you looking at Jefferson County? You're looking at Iowa County? You're looking at Rusk County? What counties are you looking at? Because the maintenance program is different in every other county, basically. Some are put on tax bills. Some have programs that they don't charge for. I mean, our $25 is about on the higher side. I talked to Iowa County today, they charge $30. Second time is $40. If they don't do it the first time, after that's $100. All different counties have different prices depending on how much they bring in. So yeah, that's the question, is what similar counties are compared to Richland County that you want to be able to look at. And like I said, the reason you questioned the logic behind the increase, that was a way to come up with a $50,000, the best that we could right away. Because you wanted for sure guaranteed money. You can't go off of land use permits because you don't know how land use permits are going to go up or down. But if we're charging $25 right now, we're getting 45,000 estimated. Double that, there's your extra another 45,000 that we're trying to come up with. So that was the logic behind it. The way I was told was to raise fees up, and all the supervisors are going to be pretty much behind it because we are hurting for money.
Supervisor Luck, how should we handle getting responses back to the committee?
Um,
Oh, a couple other questions. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So what are this is for registered deeds, so I haven't had a chance. What other options for increasing revenues in the registered deeds office? In case state doesn't provide additional funding for property transfers, I have no idea. Sue's not. Include the 2024 to 27 estimate for GIS contract savings. That's kind of what so that I have no idea.
There's
Okay.
no way we can know it right now because we don't know what we're doing with GIS. We don't know which route we're going to go, which company we're going to go with, who's qualified. As you heard today, Clinton mentioned that we're trying to find this tracking system of just addressing. We're looking at an address comes into our office. How does it go all the way to dispatch? Who does it all touch? There's a lot of different people it touches. We have to try and figure out how that all works. The software and all of that. I mean, just the phone company is a big issue. It's things that could change tomorrow. We just applied for that grant, and I don't know the status of it. Clinton knows about it, but if we got approved for the NG 911 grant and the other one, that could make a difference in the ARC view and all the other costs that we have.
Okay. Administrator Langrick, do you have any news on those grant applications, the statuses?
I don't. I'd put out a request. Director Gudgeon was handling for him. I'm still waiting that back.
Okay.
And the last question was, if the committee is already aware of further efficiencies that will be realized by combining land conservation and zoning departments, please include those projections, if not estimate when these efficiencies will be determined. Well, it's kind of too soon. We've been together like 2 weeks. And they're going to, we have no idea. We're just trying to figure out who's working in what space and how we're going to handle people coming in the door. Number one. Number two, how do we want to say it? There may be changes in the department anyway, especially my department. There are going to be retirements coming up within the next 2 to 3 years, actually year to 3 years. And so, okay, it's hard to say what will be realized in that time and how to make those changes. So it's hard to give a set date until we know, first of all, how we're doing. So to say it now is like, it's a wild guess. Maybe 2026, I don't know.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
could we go through the first bullet again? I didn't quite catch all that.
The one about the chart?
Yeah.
Well, just for land conservation, cutting the secretarial position down to half-time. There's a couple different, I talked with, because I looked on the policy, the new personnel policy on how much how much of the health insurance is being paid. And so I emailed Clinton, but I also emailed Tammy, and Tammy sent me some the thing, and I don't have the whole thing right in front of me, but basically the new hire still has intact with the Wisconsin retirement system prior to July 1st, 2011. They need 600 hours per week. 50% of the health insurance will be paid by the county, no dental, flex, or short-term disability. So they could be somebody who's retired and still has retirement coming that would consider intact. Well, then they could be eligible if they worked at least 600 hours, which this position would. But if it's a new hire that doesn't have any priors, hasn't remained with the Wisconsin retirement system, then if they work less than 23.25 hours per week, it doesn't pay any, we kind of pay anything for health insurance, dental, short-term disability. So the numbers are going to be different. I don't know. We won't know until somebody's hired. So it could be, about a little over 27,000, or it could be 39,000. Depending on the savings. So when I give the report, it'll depend on, that's what I have to put down because.
It sounds like there are multiple areas where it's going to be a guess.
Correct.
And
So it'll be
that's
somewhere between that, and the salary is based on the current salary, which is, on the higher end of the secretarial. The new person would come in lower, so I can give you rough guesstimates, not.
We're going off the question as basically says, please prepare a chart with line items and projected reductions to levy by year 2024, 2027.
Mr. Chair,
That doesn't really tell us land conservation, zoning, or what.
Yes, Supervisor Luck.
so I actually have all of those calculations. I did all of that. I just didn't attach it to our original report. So I have Excel spreadsheets that estimate what the costs are going to be for all of those positions. So, and I'm sorry, Kathy, I left when all of this stuff, I mean, I was already in Vegas when they sent all these questions back. So I'm just now looking at all this stuff. I was wondering, what is the did the committee give a deadline as to when they want the response back by? Because I was wondering if I could just gather all this information and present it at the next land and zoning meeting, and then we could send the report on, but that would be in, Mike, is our meeting going to be January? Did we
Third.
think maybe the 3rd? Yeah. But I'm wondering did they give us a deadline, or I don't know how, otherwise we'd have to meet again in December, which
Mr. Chair,
is,
Yes, Mr. Carroll, go ahead.
the next ad hoc committee meeting, December 5th, and I'm on timing for how things have to fall into place to a referendum in the spring. If we do one, we need stuff pretty quick. I don't remember an exact deadline, but it can't wait till January.
I would tend to agree with that based on discussion we had at the last ad hoc meeting. And I think the qualifier to that is, okay, we can send whatever information we have, but it's guesses at this point. So
then I mean, if we just want to have Kathy and Mike submit responses, that's fine with me.
would it make sense to incorporate what you've already prepared?
Yeah,
And-
could you send that to me?
I
and,
can,
like,
yeah.
And yeah, so if Supervisor Luck can get you that material, then fill in what you can fill in. We'll put an asterisk on it and send it on. We can only give the best information we can give. All right, so that sounds like our path forward on that. Any other questions, comments related to our response to the referendum ad hoc committee? Thank you all for your input. Item number 10 is public comment. Do we have any member of the public wanting to comment here at this meeting? Neither seeing nor hearing anyone. We'll move to item 11, which is future agenda items. So looking forward to our January 3rd meeting will be our next one. What do we want to have on the agenda for that? That we
I
wouldn't
think we
already
need-
have anyway.
I think we want to have the STR conversation again.
Short-term rental.
Yep.
Yep.
I had thought about having the meeting dates. I sent out the thing today, but since it's not agenda to talk about, I guess the main thing just to think about is July 3rd. Do we want to have a July 3rd meeting or bump it up a week because you don't want July 3rd and people are gone on July 4th vacations?
Bump it up a week.
Be my thought too, and we could certainly have that on our agenda next time to plan out meeting dates for our 2023 meeting schedule. Any other agenda items committee members you want to see? Or Kathy or Mike, either for that matter.
Maybe we want to talk about getting that 7th member. I mean, kind of forums are kind of getting a little bit sketchy
Yes.
about coming in the last minute, and we were going to start making phone calls to get people for a forum, but might be a good idea to get that 7th member on so we're not short one automatically.
And it could be just a farmer rep. I mean, I know you guys don't, but a farmer rep would be nice to, I think, because we're doing a lot of ag stuff too, and something to talk about.
Right. Very good. Okay.
And then something that's been on the back burner for a couple months is your dark skies.
Oh, yes. New year, and we'll talk STR and dark skies. All right, any other potential agenda items? Sounds like it's going to be quite a meeting as it is. All right. Next meeting, item number 12, we are adjourning to January 3rd, is it? January 3rd will be our next regular meeting. Are we going with 3 o'clock here?
All right, and the reason why it's July 3rd rather than July 2nd is that,
January.
January,
Yes.
is that July 2nd is actually a holiday.
Yeah, January 2nd is the observed New Year's holiday, so we'll be meeting on Tuesday, January 3rd, 3 p.m. here in the county boardroom. We have a motion by McGuire to adjourn to that. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Supervisor Fleming seconds. All in favor, say aye.
I
And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.